You used to be able to focus, remember? You could sit with a book, finish a task, have a conversation without your mind checking out halfway through. But now, something's different. You open 5 tabs to start one thing. You read a message and instantly forget it. You rewatch the same TikTok 3 times and still can't recall what it was about. And the worst part? You blame yourself. You call it laziness, weakness, maybe even stupidity. But it's not your fault. Your brain isn't broken. It's exhausted, hijacked, trapped in a survival mode it was never designed for. Because this isn't just distraction. It's overstimulation at a cellular level. A constant assault of dopamine spikes, attention microfractures, and invisible pressure to stay plugged in or fall behind. We live in an age where your attention is worth more than your time, and every second you're unfocused, someone else profits. Every ping, every red bubble, every swipe was engineered to keep you fragmented. So if you're wondering why even sitting still feels like a war, that's because it is. And it's not just affecting your productivity, it's rewriting the architecture of your mind. In this video, I'm not giving you another life hack. I'm going to show you why your focus disappeared and how the modern world sabotaged your ability to stay present. We'll go inside your dopamine system. We'll expose how normal habits like multitasking, scrolling, and constant alerts are silently reshaping your brain into a hypervigilant, anxious, mentally fatigued version of yourself. And we'll talk about how to reverse that damage, not with gimmicks, but with real psychological rewiring. Because deep down, you don't just want to be productive. You want to feel whole again. You want to sit with your own mind and not feel like it's slipping away. If that resonates, stay. This might be the most important 30 minutes you've given your brain in years. You're not just bad at focusing. You're overstimulated, and your brain is doing exactly what it was wired to do in the face of constant chaotic input. Protect you. Let's break this down. Your brain evolved to pay attention to what matters for survival. Danger, food, novelty, connection. But in 2025, that same system is under siege. You wake up and your phone lights up like a slot machine. Texts, emails, breaking news. 3 apps fighting for your attention before you've even stood up. You make coffee while half listening to a podcast, scrolling your feed, replying to someone you don't even like that much. By 9 a.m., your dopamine system is already fried, and the day hasn't even started. This isn't distraction. It's overstimulation-induced paralysis. When your brain gets hit with constant novelty, new content, new messages, new inputs every few seconds, it starts to protect itself. It shuts down your ability to go deep, to stay still, to focus, because everything feels urgent, so nothing gets prioritized. And here's the kicker. The more overstimulated you get, the harder it becomes to tolerate calm. You sit in silence and it feels uncomfortable. You try to do one thing at a time and your brain screams for a hit, a swipe, a sound, something. This is the invisible addiction no one talks about. It's not about the phone itself. It's about the reward loops it hijacked. See, dopamine doesn't just give you pleasure. It trains your attention. And when your brain gets used to fast, shallow stimulation, real life starts to feel slow and empty by comparison. Folding laundry, writing an email, finishing a thought. All of it starts to feel impossible. Not because you lack discipline, but because your reward system has been recalibrated. And it's not just happening to young people or addicts. It's happening to your coworker who can't sit through a Zoom call without opening 5 tabs. To your partner who watches Netflix with subtitles and still scrolls through Reddit. To you, when reading a page feels like a chore. So let's be clear, you're not lazy. You're living in an attention economy that feeds on your exhaustion. And the first step to taking back your focus isn't shame, it's awareness. Once you understand that your brain is reacting exactly how it should to a broken environment, you stop blaming yourself, and you start rebuilding from a place of power. This chapter is the wake-up. The next one is the map. There's something you've been told for years, that multitasking makes you efficient. That being busy equals being productive. That switching fast between tasks is a skill. But here's the brutal truth. Multitasking is not a superpower. It's a silent destroyer of your brain's most essential function, focus. Let's get clinical for a second. Neuroscientists have studied this. When you switch between tasks, say checking your email while on a work call or texting while trying to write a report, your brain goes into a state called task switching cost. You're not doing both things. You're rapidly shifting your attention back and forth, and every shift comes with a cognitive penalty. Memory drops, processing speed slows, stress hormones spike, You're burning mental fuel at double the rate, for half the depth. Now multiply that by your entire day, scrolling Instagram while waiting in line, replying to Slack messages while trying to read an article, watching a YouTube video while ordering food, answering texts, checking your step count. By the end of the day, you feel mentally fried. But oddly, you didn't finish anything meaningful. That's not laziness. That's attention fragmentation. Here's where it gets darker. Your brain starts adapting to this chaos. It begins to crave interruption. It gets addicted not to completion, but to switching. So sitting down to focus on one thing feels uncomfortable, boring, almost painful. Because your dopamine system, the same system designed to reward survival behaviors, now rewards jumping around, not staying present. That's why so many people say, I can't even watch a movie anymore without grabbing my phone. Or, I forget what I was doing 5 minutes ago. That's not poor memory. That's multitasking-induced amnesia. And it's reversible, but only if we stop glorifying distraction. Multitasking makes you feel engaged, but in reality, it drains your energy, raises your anxiety, and leaves your mind fractured. Think of your attention like a flashlight. If you keep flicking it from one thing to another, the battery dies faster. But when you hold it still, focused on one place, you can actually see. The truth, your brain wasn't built to do everything at once. It was built to do one thing with depth and then rest. And in a world that tells you to be constantly on, choosing focus isn't just a skill, it's a rebellion. In the next chapter, we'll explore how the dopamine cycle silently programs your attention and how to break free before burnout becomes your baseline. Let's get something straight. The reason you can't focus isn't just because you're distracted. It's because your brain's reward system, your dopamine circuitry, has been hijacked. And Dr. Andrew Huberman, neuroscientist at Stanford University, explains this with piercing clarity. Dopamine is not about pleasure. It's about motivation, drive, and attention. It's what keeps us pursuing, not just enjoying. Now here's where it gets dangerous. In a natural setting, dopamine rises when you strive, when you chase something meaningful, and then it drops when you rest, reset, and recover. But in our overstimulated world, that cycle has been broken. We've replaced deep striving with rapid, shallow hits, notifications, memes, videos, novelty, noise. So instead of long arcs of effort and reward, we live in a dopamine loop of constant micro-rewards. Open TikTok, scroll, laugh, swipe, swipe, swipe. Each moment releases a tiny spike of dopamine, and your brain starts craving it like a drug. But Huberman warns, the more frequently you trigger dopamine through artificial means, the more you deplete your system. And when dopamine drops below baseline, you feel fatigued, unmotivated, unfocused. This is the dopamine crash no one talks about. Not depression, not burnout, but a biochemical collapse of motivation created by overstimulation. And it explains why. You start your day excited, but by 2 p.m., you feel like a deflated balloon. You want to work, but your body resists. You try to rest, but your mind itches for more input. The system is overstretched, and every new scroll, every tab switch is like pouring water into a bucket with a hole in it. You're not choosing to be distracted. Your neurochemistry is reacting to an environment your brain never evolved for. Here's how Huberman puts it. If you want to rebuild focus, you need to reintroduce effort-based dopamine, where the pursuit itself becomes rewarding. That means less passive consumption, more active attention, and building tolerance for boredom, because boredom is the doorway back to depth. Most people never realize this. The inability to focus isn't a lack of discipline. It's a signal, a cry from your brain that it's been overstimulated and undernourished. And until you stop chasing dopamine highs, you'll never feel present. You'll just keep searching and crashing. But here's the good news. Neuroplasticity is real. The brain can rewire itself. And in the next chapter, we'll show you exactly how, using what science now knows about restoring attention in a world that profits from your distraction. You think your thoughts are your own, that your ability to focus is just a matter of trying harder. But the truth is, your environment is programming you every second. And unless you start shaping that environment intentionally, it will keep shaping you by default into someone scattered, anxious, and chronically distracted. Let me paint a picture. You wake up to an alarm on your phone. Before your feet hit the ground, you've already checked your email, your calendar, and maybe that one post you wish you hadn't seen. You walk to the kitchen, AirPods in, YouTube playing, notifications piling up. CNN headlines shout at you from a smart TV in the corner. And without even realizing it, your day has already been hijacked. That's not coincidence, that's conditioning. As Dr. Andrew Huberman emphasizes, the brain is a prediction machine. It adapts based on what it's exposed to, and then starts craving more of the same. Translation? If your environment is chaotic, fragmented, and noisy, your brain becomes chaotic, fragmented, and noisy. You're not broken. You're just adapting to a broken stimulus loop, and this goes deep. A Stanford study found that people exposed to multiple streams of digital input, even in the background, had significantly lower working memory and cognitive control than those who didn't. That means just being around constant noise, screens, and interruptions is enough to degrade your focus over time. So let's bring this home. Think about your workspace. Is it filled with open tabs, Slack pings, half-written notes, background podcasts? Think about how you eat. Do you ever just sit and eat? Or are you watching something, scrolling, replying, reacting? Think about your free time. Does it feel like rest or just louder consumption? Now here's the shift. When you start redesigning your environment, even in small ways, you send new signals to your brain. Silence becomes normal again, single tasking becomes rewarding, and presence starts to return. This is why people who go on digital detox retreats often report a strange phenomenon. They start feeling their own thoughts again. They remember what stillness feels like, not because they changed, but because the context changed. You don't need a retreat, but you do need to become aware. Your surroundings are shaping your focus every single minute. So the question isn't, why can't I focus? The question is, what kind of mind is my environment training me to have? And once you start answering that, you can start reclaiming control. In the next chapter, we'll break this down into practical strategies, how to redesign your digital and physical world to support your brain, not sabotage it. Because clarity isn't a mindset, it's an ecosystem. There's something most people don't want to admit. They don't fear being distracted. They fear what might surface if they stop being distracted. Because silence is revealing, stillness is uncomfortable, and focus forces you to feel. You sit down to work, and suddenly you feel restless. You go to write that report or finish that email, and your brain whispers, let's just check Instagram real quick. Let's open another tab. Let's do literally anything else. But why? As Dr. Andrew Huberman explains, focus requires emotional regulation, and when the mind is avoiding discomfort, it seeks stimulation, not clarity. In other words, your inability to focus might not be about willpower. It might be your nervous system protecting you from something deeper. Think about it. You come home from work exhausted. Instead of relaxing, you open your laptop, grab your phone, play something in the background. Not because you want to, but because the idea of being alone with your thoughts feels heavy. Maybe there's anxiety you've been suppressing. Maybe guilt. Maybe that low hum of inadequacy that says, I'm not doing enough, even though you're running on fumes. And so you distract. Because distraction is anesthesia. It keeps the pain blurred, the questions distant, the silence filled. But here's the cost. The more you numb the discomfort, the more you numb your clarity too. You lose access to your creative thoughts. You disconnect from your intuition. You stop noticing the small signals your body sends you. Fatigue, tension, hunger for something more. This isn't about blame, it's about awareness. A study from the University of Virginia found that most people would rather receive mild electric shocks than be left alone in a room with their own thoughts for just 15 minutes. That's not laziness. That's emotional overload. That's avoidance as survival. But here's the truth no one tells you. When you start reclaiming your focus, you don't just get more productive. You start healing. Because focus creates space, and space lets you process what you've been running from. It's uncomfortable at first. Your mind will resist. You'll reach for your phone, your tabs, your habits. But if you can hold that silence for just a little longer each time, you'll notice something shift. Your thoughts become clearer. Your breathing slows. And slowly, your focus stops feeling like a battle and starts feeling like home. In the next chapter, we'll show you exactly how to retrain your brain, not just to focus, but to feel safe in focus. Because attention isn't just a cognitive function, it's a reflection of your emotional state. By now, you've probably realized you're not fighting against your own brain. You're fighting against an entire ecosystem built to break your attention. But here's the good news. Neuroplasticity is real, and the same brain that adapted to chaos can adapt back to clarity. It starts with small, deliberate shifts. Changes in your environment, your habits, and your rhythms that retrain your nervous system to feel safe in stillness again. Dr. Andrew Huberman puts it simply: the brain changes in response to what it repeatedly does. So if you want more focus, you need to deliberately create conditions where focus is rewarded. Here's how that looks in real life. 1. Create a neuro-friendly morning ritual. No, this isn't about waking up at 5 a.m. or drinking celery juice. It's about one thing: reducing dopamine overload in your first hour. So instead of grabbing your phone the second you wake up, try this. Open your blinds. Natural light stimulates cortisol in a healthy way. Sit for 5 minutes in silence, no inputs, just breathing. Journal one sentence: what do I need to focus on today? That alone rewires your brain's first dopamine hit, from scattered to centered. 2. Use focus anchors during work. This isn't about working harder. It's about teaching your brain what focus feels like again. Set a 45-minute timer. No multitasking. Pick one task, just one. Put your phone in another room. Yes, really. You can use a visual cue too. A dedicated desk light you only turn on when focusing. Noise-canceling headphones with a specific playlist. A post-it on your laptop with 2 words: stay here. Over time, your brain begins to associate these cues with depth, and it follows. 3. Redesign your digital space like a nutrition plan. Would you leave junk food on every table if you were trying to eat clean? Of course not. But that's what your apps are doing to your brain. Start small. Delete one app you open impulsively, even for just a week. Log out of social media on your desktop. Turn off non-human notifications, like brands or auto reminders. One 33-year-old client in Seattle replaced Instagram with the Kindle app on his phone. He reads 15 pages a day now, something he hadn't done in years. Not because he forced it, but because he removed the trap and created a path. 4. Make boredom normal again. This one sounds strange, but it's vital. Your brain needs to get comfortable with low stimulation states again. So next time you're waiting in line at Whole Foods, don't pull out your phone. Look around, notice your breath. Let your mind wander. It's not wasted time. It's recalibration. The key here isn't discipline, it's design. You're not trying to fight distraction with willpower. You're learning to unwire the chaos and teach your mind what it means to be present again. In the next chapter, we'll go deeper into this: how to handle relapses, and why guilt-free recovery is the secret weapon to long-term focus. You're going to slip. There will be days when you fall back into the scroll, when you binge-watch instead of deep work, when you lose hours in tabs you don't remember opening. And here's what you need to know. That doesn't mean you failed. It means your brain is still healing. Dr. Andrew Huberman emphasizes this in his research on habit loops and neural rewiring. Every time you return to focus, even after a lapse, you reinforce the neural circuits of control. What matters is the return, not the perfection. Let that sink in. You're not building focus by being perfect. You're building it by choosing to come back, again and again, when the noise pulls you away. But most people don't hear that. Instead, they spiral into shame. They relapse into distraction and immediately think, see, I knew I wasn't built for this. I'll never be consistent. What's the point? This shame loop is more dangerous than the distraction itself because it convinces you that your identity is the problem, not your system. Let's ground this in real life. A 42-year-old dad in Austin told me, I set up the perfect deep work routine. No phone, noise-canceling timer. But after 2 days, I broke it. I went back to Reddit, and I felt like I had blown everything. But he didn't blow anything. He had one moment of dysregulation in a lifetime of reprogramming. And the way he interpreted that moment was what kept him stuck. So here's what you need to remember when it happens to you. 1. Expect the relapse. Plan for the return. Instead of setting rules like, I'll never use my phone during work again, try, if I lose focus, I'll notice it, pause, breathe, and come back. One breath, one return. That's progress. 2. Track recovery, not just failure. Keep a small notebook. Write down every time you come back to presence. Even if it's after 20 minutes of distraction, that's a neural rep. That's training. 3. Speak to yourself like you would to a friend. Imagine someone you love saying, I feel like I can't stay focused. Would you shame them? Or would you say, you're trying. Keep going. Why don't you deserve the same? You're not rebuilding focus in a vacuum. You're unlearning a lifetime of overstimulation, pressure, anxiety, guilt. That takes gentleness with structure. And here's the irony. The moment you stop expecting perfection is the moment your attention finally relaxes enough to stay. In the final chapter, we'll talk about what this is really all about. Why focus isn't just a tool for productivity, but a doorway back to yourself. Because when the noise fades, that's when the truth finally speaks. This whole time, maybe you thought focus was just about being productive, about checking off to-do lists, meeting deadlines, being better. But now you know, it's deeper than that. Focus is about presence, and presence is about being alive in your own life again. Because what happens when you truly focus? You hear people when they speak to you. You taste your food. You write that thing you've been carrying inside for years. You look in the mirror and recognize the person looking back. And when you don't, you drift. You forget what day it is. You live halfway inside every moment. You scroll through sunsets and smiles and conversations, but you're not in any of them. That's not just a lack of focus. That's the slow erosion of identity, and it doesn't have to be your story anymore. Dr. Andrew Huberman reminds us, the ability to focus is trainable at any age. And the benefits aren't just cognitive, they're emotional, social, existential. Translation: when you start reclaiming your focus, you don't just work better, you feel better. You connect, you remember, you return. You stop living life like it's always slipping out of reach and start showing up, fully, presently, powerfully. This isn't about becoming some perfect minimalist monk. It's about making a decision that your attention, your life force, is too valuable to give away. And here's where the hope lives. You don't need to fix your entire life to feel this shift. You just need to start noticing it. One moment of stillness, one task without switching, one meal without a screen, one evening walk with your phone on airplane mode. That's how presence returns, not in a flash but in a rhythm. And with each rhythm, your mind starts to trust itself again. You stop needing noise to feel safe. You stop reaching for input to avoid the quiet. You stop being afraid of your own attention span. Because now, it's yours. And this is the part no one tells you. Focus isn't a punishment, it's a liberation. It's what lets you access the parts of yourself that the world tried to bury in noise. Your clarity, your strength, your truth. So wherever you are right now, whatever chaos you've been surviving through, know this: you haven't lost your mind. You've just been living in a world that never taught you how to keep it, but now, you're remembering. And this isn't the end. This is the return. If you made it this far, it means something in you is still alive, still reaching, still fighting to remember what it feels like to be clear, present, whole. And maybe for the first time in a long time, you don't feel broken, you feel understood. Because now you know, this isn't about willpower. It's about design. It's about reclaiming your brain from an invisible war you never signed up for. And the most powerful weapon you have is awareness. You're not alone in this. Millions of people are feeling the exact same silent erosion, but almost no one's talking about it honestly. That's why this channel exists. So if this message hit home, if something inside you said, yes, this is what I've been feeling, I just didn't know how to name it, then don't disappear back into the feed. Subscribe to the channel, not because of the algorithm, but because you need a space that respects your mind, a space that gives you clarity, not noise. Comment below. Tell me what part of this hit you the hardest. There's power in naming what's been unsaid for too long. Share this video with someone who feels scattered, anxious, ashamed of their focus. You could be the reason they finally understand. It's not them. It's the system. And if this felt like a wake-up, good, because your mind is worth fighting for, and you've just taken the first step toward getting it back. Now go, close the tabs, breathe, be where you are, and remember, the world may fight for your attention, but your focus, that's your revolution.